This week, of course, is Pasuk Beshalach. And today is Wednesday, and those who read the Pasuk each day a week, today we read the Yashir. So our timing is perfect. Before I even get into anything, is the Yashir, how does the Yashir end? The Yashir ends with Hashem Yimlech La'olam V'ad. In other words, Al Yashir, we thank Hashem for the miracles of Yetzias Mitzrayim, and we conclude with Hashem Yimlech La'olam V'ad. Hashem Yimlech La'olam V'ad means that Mashiach should come or will come, that the Eibishter will be the king of the world forever. At the time that the Yidden said Al Yashir, they had every intention, they had every hope, every tikva, every bitachon, every kivui, that they're going into Eretz Yisrael that was described in the psukim leading up to that pasuk would in fact be Hashem Yimlech La'olam V'ad. When we say Al Yashir, which as you know we say Al Yashir every single day, we add a few more psukim. After we say Hashem Yimlech La'olam V'ad, we read the next pasuk in the parsha, Kivosas Pare, right? And then we say Ki L'Hashem Amlucha B'Yishav Al-Goyim V'Olam Meshim B'Asir Mishpat Sarisa V'Hayis Hashem Amlucha V'Haya Hashem L'Malcha Kol Ha'aretz V'Yemo Yi Hashem Echad L'Shmei Echad. Does anybody have a different nusach? I don't think so. The reason we add those psukim is because unfortunately what the Yidden had hoped for when they said Hashem Yimlech La'olam V'ad didn't materialize as they had hoped it would. And right after Al Yashir, after Yetzias Mitzrayim and the Geula from Mitzrayim would be Hashem Yimlech La'olam V'ad, an eternal Geula. Since it did not work out that way, and the reasons it didn't work out that way are various and many. One of the ideas is the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu was not zocheh to go into Eretz Yisrael, and had Moshe gone into Eretz Yisrael, that would have been the final Geula, etc., etc. There are numerous reasons, and they'll probably be discussed over the next several months in Mitzvah Hashem as we discuss the Parshas B'li Neder. The fact is, the hope that that Geula will be a final Geula did not materialize, and therefore we add additional psukim. And the content of the additional psukim is that we add to the Od Yashir the prayer for Mashiach. That we speak about Ki L'Hashem Hamlucha Moshe B'Goyim, the idea that Hashem Hamlucha Moshe B'Goyim, that Hashem should rule over all the nations, and specifically V'Olam Meshim B'Asir Lishpeit Es Had Esav, Yaakov Avinu's brother Esav, who was a Rasha and a source and a cause for much rishus, for much evil. When Mashiach comes, V'Olam Meshim B'Asir Lishpeit Es Had Esav, and then of course V'Hayzel Hashem Hamlucha, the whole world is going to be Hashem, and then V'Haya V'Hayel Melech Kol Ha'aretz V'Yemo Hu Yihya Hashem Echad L'Shmei Echad. On that day, well, the world is going to be one with Hashem. It's interesting to point out, and we discussed it at the time, that in Parshas Vayishlach, Esav Harasha had asked Yaakov Avinu that they should travel together, because as we discussed, it's now a while since Parshas Vayishlach, but we discussed it then, that Yaakov and Esav as individuals, as people who were ready for Mashiach, and Yaakov says no, he doesn't want to go. He didn't say no to Esav, he couldn't say no to Esav, so he did the next best thing to saying no. He said no diplomatically. He said which means he said, I'd love to go with you, but you're going with an army and I'm going with a bunch of little children and very frail and very young sheep, and therefore you go at your pace. I'll take my time to accommodate the Yeladim, the little children, and the Mahamalach HaShelafani, the work that's performed, meaning to say the sheep, the animals that I'm going to have to deal with, until I will come to my other, to my master to say it. So Yaakov Avinu told Esav, I'll get there eventually. And Rashi says that if you meet somebody and you don't trust them, they're not a nice person, and you're afraid of getting into trouble, you should be marchik es hadibur, marchik es hadibur. You should give them a response that indicates a distance. I'll get there eventually. In the meantime, you have at least you eliminate the immediate confrontation. And Rashi says Yaakov never went to say it. And of course the question is, if Yaakov Avinu said, certainly is going to fulfill it. And Rashi brings from the Chazal, or when is Yaakov Avinu going to come to say it, be made Melech HaMashiach when Mashiach comes? Like it says, this is the pasuk that we say in Oz Yashir nowadays, so we say the Oz Yashir. Oz Yashir thanks Hashem for Yetzias Mitzrayim. And it also anticipates that Hashem Yimlech Lemavod. As I've explained to you over the course of the last weeks, and in Mitzvah Hashem the next few weeks is going to be emphasized more and more, Geulas Mitzrayim is the beginning of what's going to culminate with the Geulah HaSidah, with the coming of Mashiach. And therefore, when the Yidden thanked Hashem for the miracles of Yetzias Mitzrayim and Kriyas Yamsov, Oz Yashir, they immediately said Hashem Yimlech Lemavod. And we say Oz Yashir every day. Our saying Oz Yashir every day is not very different than our having a Pesach Seder every year. We're celebrating an event that occurred thousands of years ago. Maskidin Yetzias Mitzrayim. Every day we mention Yetzias Mitzrayim. At Pesach we make a whole tzimtzah at Yetzias Mitzrayim. It happened so long ago. Why are we bothering to commemorate an event that happened a long time ago? And the answer is because Oz Yashir, which is the thank you, the culmination of the whole experience of Mitzrayim, and the Geula from Mitzrayim is the beginning. The end of that experience, as the Yidden themselves said then, is Hashem Yimlech Lemavod. In other words, Mashiach. So till Mashiach comes, we still thank the Eibishter for taking us out of Mitzrayim initially, and we say, but we're not happy, Hashem Yimlech Lemavod. I'll tell you interessante Zach. This is also parenthetical, but parentheses seem to have minds of their own in these classes. Interessante Zach. It's a very interesting thing. There is a halacha in Torah, and we do it every day. Many of us don't realize that we're doing it, but there's a halacha in Torah that requires what's called smichas geula l'tefillah. You know what that means, smichas geula l'tefillah? Baruch atah Hashem Gal Yisrael, and right away you begin Shmoneh Esrei. It's a din. You're not allowed to interrupt between Gal Yisrael and Shmoneh Esrei. For those of you who do not know the halacha, I'm not a rabbi, I don't teach halacha, but you're not allowed to interrupt between Gal Yisrael and Shmoneh Esrei. It's better to interrupt in the middle of the bracha than to interrupt between Gal Yisrael and Shmoneh Esrei. As soon as you say Gal Yisrael, you have to make the 3 steps back and the 3 steps forward, and then you begin Shmoneh Esrei with Hashem Sefas HaKivsach. That's the beginning of the Shmoneh Esrei. But it says in halacha that you're supposed to be Seimech, you're supposed to lean, bring together Geula, Gal Yisrael, L'tefillah, to the prayer. So I heard a Gavaldik Pshat. It's interesting. I actually saw it. As soon as Hashem gives a Yid a Geula, he davens for the next Geula. Gal Yisrael, ich darf noch etwas. The Eibishter gives us one Geula, we immediately say, Baruch atah Hashem, I still need this. So when the Yid said, Oz Yashir, they're thanking Hashem for the Geula, they're saying, but we're not finished. Hashem Yimlech Lemavod. The Geula from Mitzrayim is only a beginning, it's not an end. The end is the union of Mashiach. Hashem, the Eibishter should be a king. La'olam vod. La'olam vod means over the whole world, and vod means forever. And like I said, when the Yidden said Oz Yashir in those days, that's how the Oz Yashir ended. Hashem Yimlech Lemavod. Since, unfortunately, it didn't happen the way they planned it, so whoever, the Anshe Kassadela, whoever, I don't know the particulars of this at the moment, added the additional, who added the Oz Yashir to the Psukei de Zimra. If you know the history, the Hishtalshus of Psukei de Zimra. Psukei de Zimra started out with one pasuk that we should say, and then it stretched. Pesach became the whole Ashrei. Ashrei became all the Halalukas. For the Brach on the front, for the Brach on the back. And we say all the Psukei de Zimra. But it all started out with thanking the Eibishter for Mozin, for Parnasa. But part of the Psukei de Zimra is also the Oz Yashir. And we add these additional Psukim. We thank Hashem for the Geula He's already given us. And we immediately say we want to have Geula L'tefillah. You thank Hashem for the earlier Geula, and you immediately say we want to have the real Geula, the final Geula, the ultimate Geula. And we're waiting for Mashiach every day. So what it should be now? Anyway, this is just a parenthesis because this week is Shabbos Shira, as it's called. And we thank the Eibishter. I just also another interesting parenthesis. It's brought that the Maharal Mifrag was the Rav of Prague. The Maharal Prague was the Maharal Mifrag. Used to gather the children of Shabbos Shira and take them outside to give kasha to the birds. This was one of his minhagim, that the Ishitaka Bimakir that the animal, the birds, sang along with us on Shabbos Shira, Pasha Shira. They some had an 8 in Prague. Okay, the Fregnarov. This is the Mitzvah. This is the fact. Okay, the Maharal Mifrag, they can't lend it. Okay. For those of you who are regulars, and I see that many of you are, what we've done, mamish since the beginning of the winter, is established a certain pattern, a certain direction, and we've journeyed through down this path now for 3 months or so. Now those who are not regulars, don't worry. I'm aware that people are here for the first time or whatever it is, and I try to accommodate both. And what we've established is that the stories in the Torah are a hemshech, are a continuation, and they all lead to Matan Torah and to the Leda, to the birth of Am Yisrael, of the Jewish people, because otherwise they wouldn't be a part of Torah. Torah doesn't tell us stories. Torah is not in the history business, as we've explained in the past many times. And we discussed Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and after Yaakov has to be Golos Mitzrayim, and now we're on to Geulas Mitzrayim. And we pointed out one of the aspects that's been repeatedly stated is the idea that when Yidden left Mitzrayim, they didn't leave as they could have left or should have left. They were supposed to experience a physical shibud, a material enslavement, and instead it was also Vayareu Esanu Mitzrim. It was also a spiritual shibud. When the Yidden left Mitzrayim, they had unfortunately sunk into very low levels of Ruchniya, as we've explained. And a lot of things that happen later on in the Torah are connected to the fact that when Yidden left Mitzrayim, they were not completely ready. And in Mit Hashem, as the weeks unfold, more of these issues will be discussed and pointed out. Last week, we discussed the process of Geulas Mitzrayim itself, and I explained to you that there are 3 levels of miracles. Now, I don't like to carve things in stone because I'm not qualified. I'm not a balabayas over Torah to tell you this is how it is. But this was the discussion we had last week. We established that miracles exist on 3 levels. Maybe there are more. I'm not saying there are or aren't. This is how we phrase it. The first is the typical miracle that Hashem performs. The typical miracle that Hashem performs, Hashem hides himself to the best of his ability. He conceals himself as much as possible. Because, as we explained, Hashem wants us to serve him. And to serve him means we have to work. And to work means it has to be a challenge. And if we see miracles happening all the time, that challenge is removed. Perhaps this is what the Rishonim call a nes niftar. Nes niftar means a miracle that's concealed. Now, if it's a miracle, it's not concealed. If it's concealed, it's not a miracle. And the explanation, the resolution to this is a miracle which is concealed in Teva. It's hidden, it's camouflaged, as we explained it last week, in a way that if one wants to misinterpret the miracle and say, so the wind was blowing or something along those lines, one is able to make that mistake. That's the first and the typical kind of nes that Hashem performs. The second category of miracle we spoke about was a nes nigla, a revealed miracle, and the miracles of the Aseres of the Makkos and the whole package of Yetzias Mitzrayim. As I pointed out, that the entire story from start to finish, from the first Makkah until after Matan Torah, you're talking about 15 months. It's a very short time frame. During this period of time, Hashem did abundant miracles, many, many miracles. And as it's written in the Torah itself, Hashem says, Revois Moisai Be'eretz Mitzrayim, I am doing all of these miracles not because I need to. Hashem could have gotten us out of Mitzrayim a lot quicker than he did. Revois Moisai Be'eretz Mitzrayim, Hashem wished to show off. He wanted to display his greatness. In other words, he broke his own rule that normally even when Hashem performs a miracle, he hides it and he camouflages it. And in the case of Yetzias Mitzrayim, Hashem did multiple miracles and Dafka revealed miracles. Hashem was showing off, as we explained it last week. That's the second category of miracle. And the third category of miracle is what I explained to you happened by Makis B'Chedis and in the morning. As we say in Haggadah Shel Pesach Nigla Aleinu. This is not really a miracle. It's higher than a miracle. The third category is where Hashem himself is revealed. By Makis B'Chedis we say in Haggadah Ani v'lei Malach, Ani v'lei Saraf, right? Ani v'lei Hashaliach. Hashem does it himself. That's higher than a miracle. And the same is true also in the morning. When the Yidden actually left Mitzrayim, we say in the Haggadah Shel Pesach again, Nigla Aleinu Melech Malcha Alocham HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'Chveido V'Yatzmei, Hashem in his own covet, his own glory, and V'Yatzmei, and by himself in his own essence, U'Ga'olam, and he redeemed Yidden from Mitzrayim. And if you were here last week, you heard the discussion that we had about this, and the difference between a miracle and Hashem doing something himself. A miracle is a koyach of Hashem. You see the power of Hashem. That Hashem himself revealed means simply that a Yid, I don't know if the word sees is appropriate, or feels is appropriate, whatever language you want to use, a Yid experiences Hashem mamish. And as I explained last week, exactly where is Hashem and what does Hashem look like? Hashem is everywhere and Hashem is in everything. Hashem being revealed doesn't mean you see a light coming out of the heavens. Each Yid felt the nafshe pnima inside his own neshama, inside his own soul, inside his own essence, a gilui, an expression of the truth of Hashem. And when you experience the truth of the Eibush, there are no fakis. There's no questions, right? Why do we sometimes some of us have questions? Because we don't see. If it would be clear, if it would be broader, klar, lichtig, it would be illuminated and clear, we wouldn't have any questions. When one experiences Hashem in a clear way, there's no questions. By Yetzias Mitzrayim, it wasn't only a miracle where you saw a power and a force that Moshe Rabbeinu told you was going to happen. That indicated Hashem has done it, but rather there was mamish an experience of Hashem himself. This is true by Makas B'Chodesh. That's why Makas B'Chodesh is in a separate category from the rest of the Makas. And this is also true by the actual Yetzias Mitzrayim. Right? You know what Rashi says. This is last week's Parsha. The Makas B'Chodesh happened at midnight, right? And what were the Yidden doing that night? Mizgezessen of the Peklach. If you know Yiddish, it's just Geschmack. What can I tell you? I'm sorry, there's certain things can't be said in English. So the Malkumen aside, Yidden are going to be talking another language, Russian Kodesh, and they'll say, you got to say it in English. It doesn't go right. That's how it goes. But you got to say it in Yiddish. The Yidden are Mizgezessen of the Peklach. Of the Peklach means they were required to pack their belongings and to put on their traveling clothes. They were sitting in coats. And part of Mitzrayim is a climate. I haven't been to Mitzrayim, but it's south of Eretz Yisrael. It's a rather tropical climate. It's not very cold. It's certainly not cold Pesach time. They're sitting in their homes, overnight, gathered together with their masnechem chagudim, na'alechem beraglechem, makelchem b'yadchem. They wore shoes, the winter shoes. Now they didn't have the kind of shoes we wear. A shoe was a shoe, you know. It was heavy and it was cumbersome because they weren't as sophisticated mechanically as we are today. So a shoe was a shoe, and people didn't always wear shoes. You wore shoes if you had to take a long trip, and they're wearing their shoes and their coats and their belts, and they're sitting on their closed valises, as it were, and they're eating Korban Pesach, and midnight strikes, and Mitzrayim becomes chaos. People are wailing and screaming in the streets. People are dying like flies. And the Mitzrayim come running through the streets, and as I said last week a couple of times, Padre comes out in his pajamas, and he's running around looking, Eifei Moshe V'Yaden, where Moshe V'Yaden live, get out, Kumutsu. So the Torah emphasizes, the Yidden said, Pavolye. That's probably Russian, so take your time. You kept us here all these years, another couple of minutes. And they went around, and by Yishalu, and they borrowed, or they asked, whatever the particulars are. They didn't leave Mitzrayim until the morning. The Torah says, Be'etzem hayom hazeh hoiti Hashem es b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim al tzevosem. Be'etzem hayom hazeh, which in simple language means in the brightness of the day, in the most, how can I say it, broad daylight, the Eibush took Yidden out of Mitzrayim. And Rashi comments that there are a number of places in Chumash where it says Be'etzem hayom hazeh, and in each instant, or at least in 3 instances, where it says Be'etzem hayom hazeh, the indication is that people said, we're not going to let it happen. And Hashem says, I'm going to do it right in front of your eyes. It can happen in broad daylight, then go ahead and stop me. Do you know what the 3 occasions are? The Mabul started there, because Noach told the people that the Mabul was going to happen, and they told him, when the Mabul comes, we're not going to let you go into the table. So Hashem said, he's going to walk in, and you're going to be standing around and watching. I dare you to stop him. And the second time was by Yetzias Mitzrayim. The Mitzrayim, of course, had said, we're never going to let you go. And Hashem says, you're not going to sneak out in the middle of the night. In broad daylight, from Chatzos, from midnight till the morning is some time. and they're all ready to go. They had nothing to pack. Everything was packed already. They had to just borrow, and I guess they took along some extra shopping bags to take along their stuff that they borrowed between midnight and the morning, and they left in the morning. So it says in the Haggadah Shel Pesach, Nigla Aleim Melech Macham Lachem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that in the morning, when they left Mitzrayim, there was a separate Indian, a separate idea of Nigla. Hashem revealed himself. And this was one of the points we made last week. It wasn't only the night before. In the morning, when it came the actual time of Yetzias Mitzrayim, they had borrowed whatever they were going to borrow. They had packed whatever they were going to pack. And they're now carrying they're carrying the dough on their back. The actual walking out of Mitzrayim happened with an occasion of Nigla. Hashem revealed himself. And again, how does Hashem look? How does Hashem feel? It was an experience of Hashem himself. It wasn't a miracle. You didn't see a power of Hashem. There was no act. Nothing specific happened in that morning that indicated, look, Hashem is here. People are dying. The Muslims are dying. It was just a pure experience of the presence of Hashem. And this took Yidden out of Mitzrayim. And again, as we explained last week, it wasn't only a matter of Yidden leaving Mitzrayim, but that Hashem removed the Mitzrayim from within the Yidden as a result of this Nigla. Well, there are two more occasions like this. In other words, last week we mentioned two things. That when Hashem took Yidden out of Mitzrayim, He revealed Himself. Now we're not talking about a miracle. Miracles are one thing. We're talking about the revelation of Hashem Himself, Mamish. The night of Makas B'Chodesh, which separates Makas B'Chodesh from the remaining Makas. And then the next morning, when Yidden actually walked out of Mitzrayim, there was a separate occasion, like I said again, we say in the Haggadah Shel Pesach of Nigla. There were two more such experiences. One is this week, and one is next week. Kriyas Yam Suf, that's this week. And of course next week is Matan Torah. On these two occasions, again, there was not a miracle. Miracles are one thing. There was an occasion of an experience of Hashem Yisbarach himself. And B'li Neder, now you know the program, this week we're going to talk about Kriyas Yam Suf. The clock is moving very fast this morning for whatever reason. And next week in Mitzvah Hashem, we're going to talk about Matan Torah. The week after next is Mishpatim. We'll also talk about Matan Torah. After that is Truma, so you'll know how well prepared I am. We're going to talk about how this essence, this Hashem himself, which revealed himself at Har Sinai, is the presence of Hashem in the Mishkan. In the Beis HaMikdash, you have not a miracle or a koyach of the Eibishter. You have this same Ani v'lei Malach, Ani v'lei Saraf, Ani v'lei HaShaliach. Hashem himself is found in the Beis HaMikdash, in the Mishkan, and then the Beis HaMikdash in the house of Hashem, but everything in its own time. Today I want to talk about Kriyas Yam Suf, and I'll begin, like I said, half an hour is gone already, but now the class starts. I'll begin with the Minor Chazal, which is probably familiar to most of you. The Chazal tell us that it says in the Pasuk of the Yashir, Zeh Keli Vanveyu, and the Kei Yavi Valei Memento, right? What does the word Zeh mean? It's working? What does the word Zeh? Zeh means this. Zeh means this. So the Chazal tell us that the word Zeh indicates a sureness, a certainty. I think I mentioned this the other week, that all Nevi'im, all prophets, when they experienced Nevuah, they used to say the word Koi. Koi Yomar Hashem. So Hashem said. Koi means approximately this. Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe Rabbeinu used to also say Zeh HaDavar. This, exactly this, precisely this, without any deviation or modification or additional preciseness. Exactly this is what Hashem said. When Hashem gave Moshe Rabbeinu the first mitzvah, which was again last week's Pasha, it also says, HaChodesh HaZeh Lochem. This Chodesh is Zeh to you, so Rashi tells us that Hashem showed Moshe Rabbeinu the Levana. He pointed and said, look, Mare Be'etzbo, he pointed and said, look, Zeh, this is a new moon. So the word Zeh indicates a certain kind of a clarity, a klarkeit, a vados, a certainty. A certainty that's equivalent of pointing with your finger and saying Zeh. So it says in Chazal that when it says in the Yashir, Zeh, Keli v'anveyu, this is my God, Keli v'anveyu. The translation of the word vanvehu is subject to so many different mefarshim, but the simple translation of vanvehu is I will make him beautiful. That's why we do mitzvahs with beauty. Vanvehu means a lot of things, trust me. But that's what we'll define it as. Vanvehu means ich velem bashenin, I'll make him beautiful. So on the word zeh, it says that when the Yidden were in the Yam Suf, they walked into the Yam, right? The sea split. And there were multiple miracles, all kinds of nisim happening all over the place. They saw Hashem clearly. And Yidden said, Zeh. They pointed with their finger and they said, Zeh Kelim, this is Kelim, this is my God Vanvehu, and I will beautify him. And of course the Mefarshim, the Chazal tell us, the Medrashim tell us, that it wasn't only the adults, even the little children said Zeh, and even Ubrin Shebibnei Mei Iman, unborn children, fetuses, also sang along and said, Zeh, this is the Eibishter. They saw with such a clarity, they said Zeh. Incidentally, we know that in Mitzrayim, there was of course the Gezeda of killing all the boys. And there was a special miracle from Hashem that Hashem saved the children. How did Hashem save the children? The mothers would go out into the fields and they would deliver the babies and leave them there. And they would be swallowed up by the earth. And there were miracles that Hashem provided the children with milk and honey. And then when they grew up, they would literally grow out of the ground. Incidentally, you should know by Tchias HaMesim it also says, we say it by Alavaya, that when you bury a person, you're planting a seed. It's just to delay the implantation. Tchias HaMesim is mamish literally growing out of the ground, and the children would grow out of the ground. We say it in Haggadah. Revova ketzemach hasod nesatich. Vatibi vatigdeli ba'adi adoyim shadayim lochenu sorich tzimech vaterim ve'eria. Right? Revova ketzemach hasod means literally that they were like grass growing in a field, and they would come home grown up. Vaterim ve'eria. They didn't have any mitzvahs, nothing, but they were. That's the miracle. So it says that the children recognized Hashem first. They remembered Him, Pashut. He took care of them when they were out there in the fields, and that's why they said Zeh Keli. They recognized the Eibishter more readily did than their parents did. But on this pasuk Zeh, Keli Vanvehu, which is in the Yashir, that the Yidden pointed with their finger and they said, "This is the Eibishter." It says in Chazal, Rasa Shivcha Layom, Masha Leira Yecheskel Gadol Shebenevim. That means in the Yam Suf, a Shivcha, a maid, and the definition of a maid means a Giedis, a woman who was not Jewish. So I guess that means from the Eidiv Rav, who were accompanying Yidden out of Mitzrayim. Right? There were no Jews. Shvachis, the Jewish people were all Bnei and Bnei Chayrin. So Shivcha, a maidservant, who was arguably a Goy, the definition of a Yid and a Goy at that particular moment is subject to question. We'll talk about it in Parashat Mishpat with Hashem. But a Shivcha, a maidservant, standing in the Yam Suf, saw Mashaleira Yecheskel Gadol Shebenevim, something that the greatest of the Nevi'im, Yecheskel Hanavi, also didn't see. All the Nevi'im saw Dmut, Yecheskel saw Amare. I don't know what those things mean. You can do them for homework. But a Yidene, a Shivcha saw in the Yam Suf not Mare, not Dmut, but Zeh. Point to the thing, this is the Eibishter. So at Kriyas Yam Suf, there was an experience, not, like I said, a miracle. Miracles are very wonderful, but a revelation of Hashem Yisbarach Himself, as had occurred at Makas B'Cheres, and as it occurred the next morning when the Yidden actually walked out of Mitzrayim. So Kriyas Yam Suf was a spiritual experience. In other words, when we were little children, and now that we're also trying to have big children, I don't mean that derogatorily, chas v'shalom. Kinari Yisrael v'yaveyu. It says in Torah, the reason the Eibishter loves us is because we're His children. So none of us want to get old. So we learned the story of the Kriyas Yam Suf in a very simple way. What's the simple way we learn the Kriyas Yam Suf? That the Mitzrayim were chasing them, and they had no place else to go, right? The Egyptians were behind them, the Yam was in front of them. On one side there was a desert, a midbar, on the other side there was Nechashim Vakravim, venomous, poisonous snakes, and they had no option. So they started to scream, and the Chazal tells us, of course, that there were the Dalat Kites, different categories of Jews. This one said like this, this and this. And Moshe is davening to Hashem. Hashem says, Ma titzak eloi, what are you screaming? David of Neisov Yisol, Arain, straight ahead, into the Yam Suf. I have to tell you, a Gavaldik he brings from a medrash. Everybody knows that when the Yidden went into the Yam Suf, Nachshon ben Aminadav was first, right? that he jumped into the Yam Suf first, and the sea didn't split until he was mamish up to his nostrils. Couldn't go any further. He showed a demonstration of it. Hashem said, go, he went, and he was mamish up to his nostrils. That's when the Yam Suf split. So the Rebbeinu B'chaim brings an amazing medrash. That when Hashem said go, the Yidden started to fight with one another. And they were throwing stones at each other. As they state, what were they fighting? Who's going first? Each one wanted to be first. Each of the 12 Shvatim was screaming, we want to go first. And Nachshon ben Nadav wrestled all of the others, and he was the first to actually go in. And therefore, he brings a pasuk. I remember the pasuk, the effect. That's why he's the Moshel, the ruler of all the Jewish people, because he went ahead. But this is interessant as that. All the Jews wanted the honor to go first, and they were so determined that they were beating each other up. They were throwing stones at each other. And Nachshon ben Nadav managed to jump into the Yam, and he was the first, and the Yam Suf split. But then again, Pshutei shall make it. The simple version of the story is, you had no place to go. Hashem did another miracle, and they went through the Yam Suf. But that's not the case. Kriyas Yam Suf has a very special significance, more so than the other Makkos. Kriyas Yam Suf has a very special significance, more so than the other Makkos. More so than the other Makkos. Because as I explained, the other Makkos were, quote, just miracles. They were miracles in the category of Revois. Hashem wanted to show off. But still miracles. Kriyas Yam Suf was an occasion of the revelation of Hashem himself. Mamish. And as such, Kriyas Yam Suf, Hashem could have done without it. There's a lot of other ways Hashem gets Yidden to go besides Kriyas Yam Suf. Hashem takes us through the Yam because there's a very deep pnimiistic meaning. There's a very deep spiritual significance to the inyan of Kriyas Yam Suf. And just before I get to it, I want to point out that it says in Tanakh, and we say it on Achar Shel Pesach, that when Mashiach comes, there's also an inyan of Kriyas Yam Suf. Yidden are going to go through a Yam. But then it says, not a Yam, but a Nahar. Hashem is going to split the Nahar, the river, I guess that means the Nilus, into Shiv'on Necholim, into 7 Necholim, 7 pathways. When we left Mitzrayim, it was Yud Beis Gzorim, Logeza Yam Shel Gzorim, 12 passageways. When Mashiach comes, there'll be 7 passageways, and we're not going to cross a Yam, a sea, but we're going to cross a Nahar, a river. Those of you interested in Kabbalah, Yam is Malchus and Nahar is Bina. Okay, now just put that on the shelf. But in any event, so there's great significance to Kriyas Yam Suf. It didn't have to be. Hashem chose it to happen. Hashem could have... Listen, the whole idea that Pari is chasing the Jews is because the Eibishter is making him a turif. The Eibishter is making him crazy to do something as ridiculous as that. So Kriyas Yam Suf wasn't a necessity. There were other ways Yidden could have gone out of Mitzrayim. It happened because it means something. And here's what it means, okay? And I have to give you a little background. I hope this is not too involved, but I really think this is worthwhile to discuss. Torah teaches us, it says in Medrash Chazal, that there are 2 worlds. There's the Aretz, there's the land, the Yabasha as it's called in the Chumash, the dry land, and there is the Yam, the ocean. Nivroim shebeyam, all creatures that live in the sea, nivreu min hamayim, were created from the water. Where did fish come from? From water. Nivroim shebeyabasha, the creatures living on the land, were nivreu min ha'adama, min ha'afar, min ha'aretz, were created from the earth. In other words, we were created from different sources. Every animal living in the oceans was created from water. How did the Eibishter do it? That's why he's the Eibishter. All creatures living on the land were created from the earth itself. Oifos, this is incidental. Oifos, it says in Chazal, min harakat. Harakat means spit. And it's explained in Sfarim, it means mayim ve'ofer. Birds were made from a combination of water and land. If somebody understands what that means, you can stand up and tell me, because I don't have a clue. But this is what it says in Chazal. What's the significance of this? Fish were created from water and they live in the water. They were created from the water and they live in the water. Animals living on the earth, and lahavdul elef avdalas, humankind, people, were created from the earth. Now what happens when a person is in the earth? There's no way one can live. Correct? So fish and lahavdul, creatures living on the land, are not only different, they're opposite. Fish can't be separated from their source. You separate fish from water. And remember, fish were created from the water, the fish dies. Api halacha,
When you take a fish out of water, it's dead. It's jumping up and down, and you put it back in the water, it may live. There's no shechita for a fish. You notice that, right? Why? Because in Kodgei Hayom, it says in Chumash, and it says in Gemara and Halacha, taking a fish out of water is killing it. A fish cannot be separated from its source. And its source means literally, the fish was created from the water, it has to live in the water. Creatures living on the land is exactly the opposite. We created from the earth, and you put us in the earth, God's always eaten, you can't live. You have to be dafke, emphatically separated from the source. So these two physical situations, circumstances, indicate two kinds of relationship with Hashem. And I'll put it to you in this way. A malach. Let's call a malach a fish, for our purposes. I could say this other ways, but it would be too technical, and I don't want to bore you, and I certainly don't want to lose you. Okay, let's just say for argument's sake a malach. A malach is the equivalent of a fish. He lives in the sea. He was created, obviously, from Hashem's holy energy, and he basks in it. The whole reality of a malach is Hashem. You take a fish out of water, he's dead. You remove a malach from its proximity to Hashem, and the malach cannot survive. It immediately will expire. It'll die. It can't live. A ben adam, a person in this world, if you take a person, a physical creation, and you give him or her too much light from Hashem, you put him in the ocean, proverbially, you connect him to his source, what happens? A person will short circuit. A person is going to die. A person can't live. And there are numerous indications for this in Chumash. Nadav Avihu, it's explained in Sfarad, and they died because they tried to go into the water, try to live very close to the Eibishter. The Arvosh and Nichim Sulapatis you have in the Gemara, that Ben Azai, or Ben Zayma, went into the ocean, so to speak, and passed away from it, hit its umeis, and in the Zayha, there's Gimel Sabash, umeis Idra. There are instances we find in Chazal, if a person tries to live like a fish in the sea, they die. What does that mean? If you get too close to Hashem, which is the equivalent of living in the water, you can't live. We were created in a world by Hashem's design. That's a in Hashem's design, we have to be separate from Hashem. The strength of that is that there is an idea of bechira, free will, and thus schar v'einish, reward and punishment. We matter to the Eibishter. Fact is, there are certain creations that live in the water. They come from Hashem and they live in Hashem's world. One can, on this world, physical creations, we take a come from Hashem, but we don't feel our proximity, our closeness to Him. Very, very big tzaddikim. It's found in Kabbalah, a concept of nuna yama, fish from the sea. Neshamas that live in this world and they're like in the ocean. They're mamish one with Hashem, but that's an exception. Most of us, if we were to experience a revelation of Hashem that would be too strong, it would short circuit us. It wouldn't work. Hitzitz v'nivka, hitzitz umeis, hitzitz v'netiyas, these are expressions in the Gemara, but all the wonderful things, not such wonderful things actually, that happens when somebody tries to live in the sea. I thought of a story which will help illustrate this. I don't know how many of you have heard of Avraham the Malach. He was a person, but they called him an angel because he lived like an angel. Avraham the Malach was the son of the Mezritcher Magid, of the Rebbe Rebbe, as he's called, the successor of the Baal Shem Tov. And he was Mamash Malach. He didn't eat, he didn't sleep, he destroyed his goof, you can't imagine how. He passed away at the oldest age I saw, 37. He wasn't Marach Yamim. If there's anybody else, I heard somebody mention the Bayana Rebbe, that was his Einiklach. The Friedmans, the Ruzhiner was his grandson. He was a very big tzaddik. He was Mamash Malach. He learned together with the Alter Rebbe, with the Rav, with the founder of Chabad Hasidus. That's a whole story in itself. And once, they were learning something, and the Alter Rebbe saw that the Malach was going to pass away. So he ran and he got a bagel, and he smeared it thick with butter, and he put it in his mouth. And he saved his life. The meaning of the story is, he was such a big tzaddik, and he was experiencing such a dveikus with Hashem that it resulted in what's called in Torah a kalois hanefesh. Kalois means his neshama pashat almost left his body. He was so holy, so elevated, that he almost ran away from this world. So the Alter Rebbe ran and got a bagel, and dafke with shuman, with fat, and he put it in his mouth. So he brought him back down to earth. You can't be so holy with bagel and butter in your mouth, and he pashat saved his life. This is the idea. There is the Yam, there's the ocean, where creations come from the water and live in the water. And then there is the Abasha, this world, which is the world that Hashem gets his nachas ruach from, for whatever reasons, we are dafke separated from Hashem. If we walk into the water, I don't mean into the ocean, the spiritual water, if a yid experiences oneness with Hashem, the neshama cannot remain in the guf. The neshama leaves the body. Now you understand the significance of Kriyas Yamsuf. Uvnei Yisrael holchu bayabosha b'shoich hayam. Going into the water was not just a way of getting away from Mitzrayim, and it also was not just a way of eliminating the Mitzrayim. The Eibishter could have gotten rid of the Mitzrayim in a lot of other ways. Kriyas Yamsuf has a very deep pneumistic inyan. It has a very deep spiritual significance. The significance is people walked into the water and came out alive. And again, we're not talking here about the physical water. People who are by design created to be separate from their source. The source of creations is the earth. We have to be separated from the earth. Walked into the water. B'sayich hayam, in the middle of the water, meaning to say, in the middle of an experience where every single yid felt as one with Hashem, as fish feel with water. We walked by Yabasha b'sayich hayam. By Yabasha b'sayich hayam means it didn't result in any expiration. People didn't die. Neshamas weren't flying out of people's gufis. People were able to experience a union, a oneness with Hashem, which is the equivalent of a fish being one with water. In other words, Hashem created us all, but we're not aware of it. If we would be aware that Hashem created us, we would stop being us and we would become Him. The inyan of Kriyas Yamsuf was that a yid was able to feel mamash, the Eibishter's presence, Hashem's presence, to the extent that they are one with Hashem and they remain people. They experience the highest gilui, the highest imaginable revelation of Hashem Himself, and they remain by Habasha, they remained alive. It was an exceptional experience of the Eibishter. It doesn't happen all the time. It happened at Kriyas Yamsuf. It happened at Har Sinai. And it hasn't happened since. Except, as I mentioned before, in the Beis HaMikdash itself, and again, like I said, we get the Pashas Truma, B'li Neder, we'll talk about that. But this is the significance of Kriyas Yamsuf. And this is what the Chazal tell us when they tell us that a Shivcha, a maidservant, saw in the Yam what the greatest Nevi'im didn't see. The greatest Navi is still living on the ground, on the earth. He's separate from his Shadish. He's not in the water. He's outside of the water. And he's relating to the Eibush. He's relating to his source, relating to the water. The experience of Kriyas Yamsuf is every Jew experienced a oneness with his source, with the Eibush himself, and yet they remain people. And to put it into a greater context, this is what Hashem wants. Hashem wants that the entire world should reveal Him. Hashem wants the whole world should be a mishkan, a home for Hashem Yisbarach, not just one building. The whole world be a home for Hashem. Here's the catch. Hashem wants the whole world to be a home for Hashem, and yet it shouldn't burn up. It should be a world, a welt. There should be a keli, a mekabel, one who is receiving a light from Hashem, and Hashem is totally, utterly, absolutely revealed, and the world remains a world. Kriyas Yamsuf was a short-term, a momentary experience of that kind of energy. A yid felt how he's one with Hashem. Matan Torah was a second occasion where we had this kind of experience of the oneness with Hashem. Hasn't happened since. Why? Because now, over the course of the thousands of years of Yiddish history, Yidden did many, many mitzvahs, including, unfortunately, thousands and millions of instances of Kiddush Hashem Kipshutei. All of the effect of Yiddishkeit, of the collective avodah that Yidden have done over history, is in effect making the world strong. That when the time comes and Hashem is revealed in the world won't vanish. The world will become Ois Mitzias. So the significance of Kriyas Yamsuf was for a little moment, a taste of what's going to be at the end, what the reward is. And Har Sinai, and I'm going to talk about this next week, Hashem, is a second taste of that energy, and then Hashem turns the lights out, so to speak, and we don't see the holiness of Hashem. We don't live in the ocean, we live on the land, and the accomplishment, the effect of Yiddishkeit, of Torah and mitzvahs is every act of Torah is another girder, is another support, is another screw, so to speak, figuratively speaking, that when the time comes, that there will be a revelation of Hashem Himself, mamash, in the whole world, when Mashiach comes, and that's not temporary, that's a permanent revelation, the world will be able to tolerate it, because Yidden have reinforced it, so to speak, through the efforts of Torah and mitzvahs. So, As it turns out, Kriyas Yamsuf is not just a way of getting away from the Mitzrayim. It's a very deep spiritual thing that's greater than all the makas that led up to it, because it was a moment that the Yid saw, experienced Hashem Mamish, and it's for us to meditate on, to realize what do we accomplish when we do a mitzvah. It's not just another one of Hashem's mitzvahs, it's another act that strengthens the world, or that readies the world. You know, when we were little children, we used to use the expression, another brick to the third base HaMikdash. It's the same idea, strengthening the world so that when the Gilu, when the light is again turned on, the world can tolerate it. But I have to conclude by, of course, talking about the Oz Yashir itself. Oz Yashir is a song, and it's thanking Hashem Yisbarach for His miracles. And amongst all the very sophisticated and intricate and deep and involved miracles of Oz Yashir, significances of Oz Yashir, is the simplest one. That's Hakadas HaTov. Hashem does something for you, say thank you. And Takav Imedat Zayin, like a mensch, you say thank you. Everybody together, and you know, as the Oz Yashir is, it's a beautiful song, right? You ask yourself a Pashta Shaila, which poets wrote it, how many drafts they wrote. Sometimes you think of Torah in realistic terms, you wonder, it came out spontaneously, they all know how to say the same words, they didn't practice, they never rehearsal. We were all there, but we forgot. I don't know the particulars. Bottom line is, it's a beautiful song, even on a very technical level, on the level of poetry, Pashit. And a Yid has to know that there's a special significance in saying thank you to Hashem. And as I've explained last week and many times, one of the reasons you say thank you to Hashem, besides for the fact that Hakadas HaTov is a very honorable thing to do, it reminds you, not it reminds Hashem, it reminds you, it reminds me of the presence of Hashem. And that's very important. When you see a miracle and you say, okay, you forget it. And if you forget it, the long-term impact that a nace carries you through other hurdles in life is lost and forgotten. But when you make a tzimis out of it, you say thank you, you make a su'udah shaidoya, you recognize, you praise, you acknowledge Eibishter for His miracles, for His wonders. So you remember that Hashem performed the miracle for you. So you are a better Yid in days and weeks and months and years to come. And that's the reason Oz Yashir is so, amongst other things, Oz Yashir is so important. Just a way of conclusion, if you noticed, I'm wearing Shabbos Dika clothes. Today is the yahrzeit of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. Yud Shvat is the yahrzeit of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. But I don't know the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. I'm named after him. So, by Ashkenazim, it would be rather difficult for me to have known him. But Yud Shvat is also the day in which this Rebbe became the Rebbe, and as such, it's a very appropriate day to say Oz Yashir, to thank the Eibishter for such a great tzaddik who provides us with hadracha and leadership and so on. Anyway, it's Wednesday, and as always, a guten Shabbos. Okay, that's all I give.